Good afternoon once again, and you're welcome to the Doyen Institute of Intelligence and Investigations platform. And this is a Security Awareness Forum. My name is George Dosu Doyen. I'm your host for today. Already, I have two of my special guests in the studio with me, and today we'll be looking at unwitting courier. A lot of questions have come to my desk as respect to what really is unwitting courier. Unwitting courier basically means contraband trafficking where innocent victims are used. Over the years, we've had a record of a lot of Africans who are traveling and have been intercepted by law enforcement only to realize that some of the packages they were carrying for friends, for loved ones, some that were even gifts, had concealment in there. And these concealments are contraband. Some of these contrabands could be drugs, it could be undeclared money, which is money laundering, undeclared gold, undeclared diamond, could be bullets, it could be any sort of weapon. And so what we'll be handling today would focus more on creating the awareness of a case where we wouldn't want any criminal organization or a criminal entity to use you to transport these contraband items where you can be found wanted. If you look at the statistics over the years, it's actually alarming. And it appears that most of the law enforcement agencies across the continent of Africa are silent on this one. And I strongly think that this is the time that we all on the continent need this education. I will cite some examples. Over the years, I have worked in the Office of Intelligence and Documentation within the Office of Narcotics Control Commission. I've also worked in another intelligence organization, again, in fighting other sort of crime. I will be speaking to my guests on some of the things that are currently happening. We'll be discussing the records, the statistics. We'll also be discussing the approach that these criminal organizations use in luring innocent victims to transport their contraband without their knowledge. As part of our show today, I'll be showing you some videos that has been interdicted for you to see how these criminal organizations can and have been conducting their concealment over the years. And I'll move straight to my studio. And in the studio with me, I have my two able gentlemen, one from Zambia and the other from Ghana. Let me welcome to the studio Mr. Gome Chirambo from Zambia as a security consultant. And I also have with me Mr. Ahanta Apemihiniba the second. Mr. Gome, if you can hear me, I welcome you to the show. I think, Mr. Gome, your microphone is on mute, so if you can unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, George. My sincere apologies. Are you able to get me now, George?
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much, George. And it's indeed my profound pleasure to be part of this great program.
Thank you very much for joining us again. And today we'll be looking at unwitting courier. You have some experience within those areas. I also do have some experience, and we're going to combine that to educate the citizens of Africa. This is one of the growing criminal operation within the continent of Africa. And unfortunately, majority of our fellow citizens have no idea that it's happening. Aside some example, and I'll do that. Somewhere 4, 5, 6 years ago, I spoke to a woman who had returned or who was arrested in London and has served a 1-year prison sentence and was deported back to Ghana. I was then in a position where if you have been arrested anywhere in the world and you are a Ghanaian and you are being deported back to Ghana, you definitely would have to come to my office for us to do some documentation and proper discharge before you could go home. And so speaking to these women, this is what happened. She had come to Ghana. She had lived in London for mostly all her life, and she had come to Ghana to visit the family. When she was heading back home, I mean, back to London, the son asked the mother to go with a tuber of yam, in fact, two tubers of yam. And then a friend was going to meet the mother at the London Heathrow Airport, where the friend was going to take the yam. Okay. The mother took the yam, got to the London Heathrow Airport, and that was where she was arrested. And then the yam was cut open. There were cocaine concealed in the yam. And as a matter of fact, that was the reason why the mother has to serve a 1 year prison sentence and was later deported back to the country. Um, Someone would say, is that the number of years it takes for somebody who is in possession of narcotics to be sentenced? No, but she was sentenced on negligence, not on possession, but on negligence, because investigation reveals that this was a setup, or what we call unwitting courier. I can cases upon cases upon cases. I can have that discussion with you because that has been my office. But the key focus today, it would be to educate you as a citizen of Africa, not to fall victim to some of these things. And so, with that backstory, let me now come back to the studio to speak to my guest, Mr. Ahantan Apimihiniba Kofi III. You're also welcome. Mr. Ahantam Apimihiniba Kofi III. If you can hear me, you are welcome to the studio.
Thank you, George. I'm happy and glad to be here. Yes.
Thank you. I'll start with Mr. Gomez. Mr. Gomez, this situation that we are discussing today, how is the case like in Zambia, and probably on a larger extent, the southern part of Africa?
Thank you very much, George. Just as you have shared the backdrop, Unwitting Courier is something that I think most people have potentially survived because we've carried so much stuff from our friends, our colleagues, across borders, and fortunately, we didn't carry contraband that was prohibited. And normally, this doesn't happen from strangers. It's usually people that we know who themselves may be aware exactly of what you're doing or may equally just be used. So it is very common. And my country, Zambia, has not been spared. And unfortunately, most of our people that were involved, and George, I must state that the majority cases we've had have been ladies. This happened across borders in other regions. And as we speak, there's one or two cases that I was involved in. This involved one young lady that was going to the Middle East and met some gentleman in South Africa. And of course, there was seeming to be some promising relationship coming up between the two. He was very generous financially towards this lady, and she wanted to see Dubai at some point and everything. So she was sponsored, and he promised to meet her somewhere within the Middle East and asked if she could carry a small parcel for him. Unfortunately, when she reached China, she was intercepted. And that's when she realized exactly what she was carrying. So it was purely unwitting courier. She thought this is somebody trusted, this somebody had money and gave her money. And as we speak, the Zambian government has been trying to negotiate an extradition of this individual. I'm not privy to much more detail because we only handled the private aspect where we collaborated with some law enforcement officers, and the government took that other part on. So this is a very common crime that is happening, and it's very important as Africans because a lot of this contraband is Africa has been found to be a safe haven. So even the drug barons and all these are carrying all these narcotics. They realize that we become a very clear transit point. And when they bring it down here, it's easy for them to bring it in, but the most hardest part is for them to take it to other places, let's say the global north. And therefore, unsuspecting victims, and Zambians have been trying to cross and looking for new avenues, a new life in the UK, a new life in the US, have been intercepted along the way, unfortunately, George.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunter, if you are with me, okay, so I think okay, so
Yeah, I can hear
Mr.
you, George.
Hunter,
Yeah, I
okay,
can hear
so
you.
quick. Yes, quickly, we have the Zambian perspective, and I think that Mr. Gomez touched on some key issues, which we'll come to, that include how some of these victims are lured. We'll come to that topic. But you being a law enforcement personnel within Ghana, can you tell us from your personal experience some of these things before we zoom into the how they lure their victims?
Yeah, I think from what Mr. Gomez said, it's not that different, that much different from Ghana. It's almost the same approach, the same style. And Ghana, I mean, is noted for this unwitting Courier. I mean, if you look at the statistics, but even NACOP, if you look at that of African Union and even NACOP has indicated about 70% of the drug cases that they arrest people, they are mostly unwitting Courier. And if you also look at that of African Union has also indicated that over the years, there has been about 300% increase in these drug-related issues, and most of them are unwitting Courier. So it's a phenomenon. It's much more about crime, another sophisticated way of people finding ways and means to commit crime. And so it's not different from what is happening in Zambia and that is what is happening in Ghana. Not much different.
Thank you very much. Let me also say this quickly that when it comes to unwitting courier, or to break it down, contraband trafficking where innocent victims are used. Yes, there is a transnational where we have people traveling from one country to another. Their friends, their loved ones, colleagues, church members may ask them to transport an item from maybe their country of origin to their country, to a country of their destination for them. We also have cases where we have loved ones asking their other friends to go to the post office and post some items. And sometimes these items contain contraband, which then is interdicted. While we're having this discussion, and for you to appreciate and have a better perspective of the discussion and know that it is real, I may want to share some video with you. Yes, I'll do some voiceover, then I'll come back to the studio, and then we can look at how these innocent victims are lured. We can look at how to prevent it, and then finally we can have your comment contribution coming in. Let me also say that if you're watching us live on YouTube and on Facebook, kindly do share the link to your profile or your page, just so your loved ones could also benefit from this. The program is lasting for just an hour. Now, if I take you back to the studio, what you are seeing is a box. Now, this is the story behind the box. His friend asked him, can you please go to the post office? And this happened in Ghana. Can you go to the Ghana General Post Office and post these items for me? What you're seeing, or the content of the item, that's a box and it has wigs in there. He posted the item, and then thereafter he was interdicted by personnel from the Narcotics Control Commission. As you can see, we have the four sides of the box that had concealment around it. What you're seeing is a type of drug. That is methamphetamine, one of the most addictive synthetic drug ever produced in the world. Now, we'll move away from the drug and let's focus on the concealment. The officer is going to cut the other side of the box. And then that's where you also realize that there is concealment there as well. So the concealment is on the fourth side of the box. This person was arrested. And if you look at the laws of Ghana, the laws of Ghana says that once it's found in your possession without legal documentation, then you are found guilty. And the law went on to state what punishment. Say for the first time, we are looking at minimum of 10 years, second time, minimum of 15, and then third time, minimum of life if you are. Unfortunately, this is how some people within the criminal organization are using their friends, their loved ones, their colleagues, and to some extent, husband, wife, girlfriend, and boyfriend. Uh, before, so I am back to the studio now, and then let me start with Mr. Gome, we just watched this video, and I have given you the backstory because I participated in that particular case. Uh, how how do these criminal organizations lure these innocent victims into falling into some of these traps? Is it a case of greed, or like Mr. Ahanta would say, wanting to get rich quickly, or just a case of negligence?
George, we must underscore that this is a multi billion dollar industry. So, first and foremost, there's a lot of money that is thrown out there. Um, the perpetrators themselves, they understand the risks, but of course, they also understand their gain should a contraband go through successfully. So, usually, firstly, one is greed does work, where somebody looks at what they can also gain, because these people will say, "Oh, please just help me carry this parcel." Oh, by the way, here's $1,000 just for the inconvenience. We don't want you to be. So the moment they flash $1,000 or whatever the amount is, you find that the person drops their guard. They will not go through the due diligence that you're supposed to of saying, "Look, what are you carrying? I would like to you to pack whatever it is with me from scratch, and we'll seal it up together the way it's supposed to be done. Then I carry a contraband." But because there's been this money flashed, usually people drop their guard. Secondly, there's a pure aspect of negligence as well. Look,
Okay.
it's okay. It's not a big deal. This is just going to be a kilo of my luggage, and I've got enough space. Oh, and the guy that I'm taking this to is a very good friend of mine, so he'll feel bad if I refuse or try to double check by making by. They'll think I presume they are criminals or something. So yeah, it's okay. Let me carry it. So there's negligence. So both do apply, greed and negligence. So it's just very important that people do exercise due diligence, because once you are caught with that contraband, remember, it's being in possession. And you may be lucky, like a case you said, George, where the lady was imprisoned for 1 year and brought back
Yes. Mr. Gome, I think we are losing you there.
scenarios. Usually,
Okay.
there may not be evidence to clear you, and therefore you may end up getting charged and serving the full term.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gomer, for sharing that with us. Mr. Ahanta, from your experience, what usually is the underlying, how do these criminals lure these innocent people into doing these things in particular?
Yeah, I think it's much more based on trust issues. In a case of somebody has trust for you, a person has a right of respect for you, a person does not think that that is what you do, has no idea about what you have back in your mind. So the person thinks like, okay, it's a friend, it's somebody I've known for all these years. The person does not have any idea about the kind of job, the kind of deeds those people are involved in. And based on those of us here in Africa, based on our cultural values and our cultural settings, it's like, well, I mean, it's one of us. We know him. So you don't even have that idea that that person can do that to you. I remember I was traveling to Switzerland. I was traveling to Switzerland, and then I got to the airport, and there was this lady coming. Even me, a police officer, George, a police officer. And so I got to the airport, and there was this lady carrying a lot of things. And as soon as she got to me, "Oh, please, man, can you help me?" Trust me, the next thing I did was I was extending my hand to help. And there was this guy behind the girl who signaled me. No, 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 signal me, don't do it, don't do it. And then I quickly realized that no. I just thought about it. I told the lady that, "Oh, unfortunately, I have a pen in my hand, so I can't help you. So I can't help you." So imagine I could have fallen a trap to it just like that. So it's our values, it's the way we are brought here. And because the criminals have realized that they have used the old ways and they are always being caught, now they must devise new ways. And that is to use people close to them unknowingly. And so that is what I think. That is what is going on. Yes.
Thank you very much for also sharing that with us. I would also equally share my experience. I also think that when it comes to contraband trafficking, where innocent victims are used, yes, there are a few ways that these criminals lure these innocent victims. One is trust. I work with you. We are in the same office. We are all police officers. You're wearing uniform. I'm wearing uniform. You happens to have to be selected to travel to a different country. I happens to have family or people I know there, and so I ask you to carry just a kilo of package for me. You definitely are going to say yes. Why? Because trust is built. So trust is one of the key things that these people rely on, and they can take years, months to build the trust. I have witnessed cases where we have someone who actually started going to a church just to recruit somebody. In the church, he built trust. You know, in churches these days, who is here for the first time? The gentleman got up, and then people started exchanging, and then there was this pleasantry and exchange of numbers. He identified his target, and then they started building friendship. 3 months in the church, he told the lady, let's go. So something started, intimate. And then say, okay, let's go and spend some time in Dubai. They went to Dubai and spent 1 week, came back to Ghana. And next time they said they were traveling to London, which is the United Kingdom. They bought a ticket, but the gentleman said, no, this time around, last minute, I have a change of flight. You go ahead on this flight. A friend of mine will meet you at London Heathrow Airport. I will come tomorrow on the next flight. Now, what has actually happened was that uh, the gentleman bought a luggage, a bag, a traveling bag for the lady to pack her stuff in, not knowing in the traveling bag were concealments. Okay, in there, there were 5 kilograms of drugs in there, and then the lady was arrested at the other side, and the man was nowhere to be found. You get the point. So yes, some of them take a lot of time to build trust. We must also appreciate the work of these criminal organizations because some of them and the way they operate is highly sophisticated. Now, I'll be sharing with you other videos. So, as you can see, this is Onion to better appreciate, for you to better appreciate what we are discussing and the fact that it is really happening. This is Onion. The Onion was intercepted, and in the Onion was a concealment. And these particular consignment, usually it's the transporters, the driver that is transporting from, let's say, Kumasi to Accra, from Palape to Kambwari, okay, from Juba to the administrative area. They are the ones that finally will be arrested because the main culprit knows what they have done and have these at the back of your mind. When you have criminals that have given you a lot of money, like in drugs, so like you can see the onion, you can see the drug in there. Mr. Gomez, we have, for example, if you look at the price range of cocaine alone in the continent of Africa, we are looking at a kilogram going for $25,000. Yeah. And if the same kilogram is sent to the United States, that's about $50,000. Uh, like you mentioned, like you mentioned earlier, Africa is the transit point and not the final consuming point of some of these products. And so, if a criminal give you a 1 kilogram of cocaine and bought a flight tickets, a bag, and book a hotel for you, he makes sure that he sends someone else to monitor the amount of money you have in your possession. Okay, so usually in the operation, while you are doing the Unwitting Courier, there's someone else behind you who is on the same flight with you, on the same bus with you, monitoring you just in case if you are arrested, they can confidently communicate to the person who gave you the item. Now, having these at the back of our mind, what must we do as travelers to stay safe and secure? What are some of the preventive measures we can put in place to make sure that we don't have criminal entities or individuals using us to do an unwitting career? I'll start with Mr. Gobe.
Thank you so much, George. It's very important that we do not act premised on trust. but we
Mm.
always have to ensure we verify. As has been clearly stated, unwitting courier does not come from strangers. It's very easy to tell a stranger, I'm sorry, I can't help you, or I can't do that. A hand almost got into something, but these are people you know. These are people you trust. These are people that have built a relationship with you. So when it comes to travel and cross-border movement, it is very important. Please get this professional advice. Do not carry something, one, that you've not packed yourself. Do not carry
Mm.
anything you've not witnessed packed. Once you carry anything, even if it's from the most trusted individual or person, you risk the consequence of ending up in some of these situations. So very, very importantly, you need to verify whatever it is that you're carrying. Please do not premise it purely or basically on trust, but verification, because at the end of the day, when there's an interception of contraband, remember, you are the carrier, and it's you that it's found in possession of, and it's you that faces the full consequences.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahanta. How, from a law enforcement perspective, how do citizens prevent some of these things?
Yeah. So, George, you see, you've got to please don't don't cross the border with anything that you have never packed by yourself.
Mm.
Anything that you have never packed by yourself, your luggage. And so, no matter how it is, it's not a case of telling somebody that, please. Somebody tells you, I mean, don't be that generous person. You understand?
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, you'll be the victim. So before you cross, make sure that everything that you are carrying, please, your luggage should be portable. It should be portable. The one, I mean, so that you'll be able to know what you have in your content. Just in case, by chance, if somebody wants to send you something and you really want to do it, take the money, buy the thing yourself, pack it yourself, and send it.
Mm. That's a very important one, and I actually fully agree with that.
Yes.
Uh, Buying
You
the things
really,
yourself, in that
yes,
way, you know that you went to the market and you purchased these
Yes.
things yourself.
yes,
Uh,
yes. So
yes.
find a way, tell the person in a very nice and polite way that, please, because of experiences and nasty experiences that we have seen before, how much? Bring the money, let me buy the things, I'll package them myself and send it. That case, you'll be fine. You know the content. So the thing is that know the content of whatever you are carrying by yourself, and
Mm.
not something that you are not so sure. I believe you remember the case of Dasibra Jamina, one popular
Very,
musician in Ghana. At
very.
the end of the day, it became a very big issue. Dasibra returned from UK or wherever it is. He
From
was
Spain,
never of
actually.
himself. He was never of himself until the gentleman died. All the career and everything. He never recovered from that thing until he died. So at the end of the day, the investigation went on. The fingerprint and everything showed that, well, there has been some kind of whatever it is. But what I'm trying to say is that carry what you have packaged or you have packed by yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very
Very
much.
true.
I think that in the case of Dasibre Amonfe Dramina, one of Ghana's favorite high life musician who is late, he was arrested in Spain for drug possession. But after investigation was conducted, his argument was that he didn't pack his luggages himself. And when forensic fingerprint analysis were done, there was confirmation that indeed there were none of his fingerprint in those luggages. So it means that whoever packed his luggage is the one who placed the contraband in there. And so that is also to say that as part of the preventive measures we can take is that anytime you're traveling, make sure that you pack your stuff yourself. In that way, nobody elsewhere will probably will find a way to conceal contraband in your luggage. That being said, I would want to chip in this one, that if you're traveling through the airport and then you have, don't check in other people's luggages for them. If I'm traveling with Mr. Gomez and we are on the same flight, and because we are friends and we are colleagues, we are heading towards the same destination, and he happens to have done probably extra shopping, and there is extra luggage he has to pay for according to the airline, and I'm only carrying one luggage, which means that I have the opportunity to check in a different bag that I may not necessarily not pay extra for it. Mr. Gomez is likely to tell me, George, can you check in my luggage for me? Now, my response to him, I'm telling him now before we get there, I will say, no, Mr. Gomez, check in your bag yourself. Why? Because the moment I check in his bag, the bag is going to be tagged under my name.
Yes.
And once it's tagged under my name, should law enforcement find anything else in, uh, 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 in the bag, which may be in a form of contraband, it means that I will be first responsible for the content because it is my name by the evidence on the luggage. By the time I'll let them know and they may come to the realization that the luggage is not mine, I actually check in for Mr. Gomez. By then, Mr. Gomez probably might have found his way out and it's far gone. And so that is one of the things we must also pay key attention to. When we are at the airport, somebody say check in, please do not check in. So let me come back to the class. Please, for those of you who are joining us on our social media platforms, please, you can let us know. Be kind enough to let us know where you are joining us from, which country, which region or state you are joining us from, and you can leave your questions under the comment section, either on the YouTube video or on Facebook. I'll read it out here, and we have those in the studio to answer them for you. Already, I see few people who have joined us and they have shared some comment. Have good evening, everyone, joining the feed live from the capital here in Accra, Ghana. Mr. Joseph, and that's Mr. Basiru Ibrahim. Then I have Mr. Joseph Hakuliba. He's watching us live from Zambia. We also have Mr. Ohininana Afari Deborah. Good evening. I salute you. I will also take it back. And then we have Bernard Yankee watching us live from the Ashanti region, Comerica, we call it. Loud and clear. So we have Mr. Cyril Aite Ministry. I believe this is Mr. Cyril Aite, also watching us live. Mr. Jerry Rollins. I want to believe it's not our late president who is watching us live, but this is a living Jerry Rollins. Then we have Jerry Springer. Good evening, gentlemen. Just joined. Highly professional from Ohininana. This is Mami Ekia Adipa. Thank you for the enlightenment. Very educative program. Thumbs up. Thank you very much, Mami Ekia Adipa, for the thumbs up. We really appreciate it. This is first time here, and I'm very impressed. Keep the good work. Something we don't always get to hear. The woman, TW. The woman, TW, thanks for joining us. I would also urge all of us to share these feed on our various social media platform, just so we could have more people to watch, and if possible encourage them to like our Facebook and our YouTube channel. This way, when we release some of these videos, they may be able to watch thereafter. Mr. Michael Soriba Kamara is watching us live from Sierra Leone. The woman TW is watching us from the Western region. Jerry Rollins is actually joining us from Ghana. Edinam Sabla joining live from the Independent Square, Ghana. I believe she's probably declaring a new Independence Day for Ghana. Thank you, Madam Edinam, for joining us. Alhassan Zakaria Hamza live is joining us live from Saudi Arabia. Keep it up, he said. I know Mr. Jerry is trying to alert me. I know it is Mr. Jerry. He's a student of the Doyen Institute of Intelligence and Investigation. We have Mr. Haris bin Alpha. He is Sumaila Idrisu and he's joining us live from Insawam. We have DI. Well done. Keep it up. Michael, well done. Educative section. Very educative from Fred Nana. Keep your comments coming. And if you have any question, keep it coming. And we have our guests that would answer those ones for you. Moving forward, I've worked within the law enforcement, my guess. Personally, I have been fighting drugs for some years before I resigned into now in the private sector. There are things I would say I'm still under oath, so I'm not allowed to communicate on some of them. That was a smart move by the organization I worked for then. But I want to push this one to my guests to answer for me. One of the things I have realized over years is that the various organizations that fight these things have an educational unit. Maybe Mr. Hunter may educate us if the Ghana Police Service have an educational unit. And then I can confirm that the Narcotics Control Commission have educational unit. Mr. Gomez may also share from the Zambian perspective. But I know for a fact that most of the law enforcement agencies on the continent of Africa do have educational unit. The key question is, why are they not focusing in educating citizens about some of these things? It appears, is it that their focus is mainly on enforcing the law and making arrests rather than looking at the preventive measures? What could be the problem? Why they are not educating their citizens? I'll start with Mr. Gomez.
Thank you so much, George. Indeed, I can attest that even from my country, the Zambia Police Service does have an education unit. Under statute, we also have the Drug Enforcement Commission, which do have education units as well.
Okay.
I'm limited in my exposure in terms of comment on these two organizations. I can speak from that perspective.
Okay.
And George, I just want to say that some of the aspects, of course, there's aspects of taking off, but suffice to say, there is a lot that has to be done. And some of the issues that I've seen, which seems to be common in Africa, I could speak this for my country, the issues of capacity as well. When we talk about education, you find that some of these institutions that are given this mandate do not exactly have the capacity vis-a-vis the population that we have. You see a lot of effort being made where they're trying now to implement educational systems within communities where the community liaison officers from these units go into communities. But again, the impact is very minimal. And this is where, for the case of Zambia, George, we come in as a private sector. By the way, I'm fully practicing privately, but I have a very active relationship with state enforcement. And as a private sector, we're taking up the initiative. We as Zambians, and this is a good Zambia we want to see. So we're now hyping the aspect of education through various partners, and these are local partners because we'd like to take a very localized approach to educating ourselves and bring ourselves up to speed. That once we're educated, George, it will be a lot easier. Yes, I think most African governments are focused on enforcement, and that is waiting for you to carry those drugs, then come and nab you and slap you with a huge jail term. But I believe the time has come, and we can be more proactive, prevent a lot of these cases if we invested a little bit more in education. And I believe most African countries need to make that investment, George.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ahantan, can you give us your take on that issue?
Yeah.
What is preventing our law enforcement agencies from educating the public on some of these things?
Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting to know that Jerry Springer is listening or is part of it. I think Jerry Springer is one person you should look for him and bring him on board. Maybe another time you should also come and take a stage because he's a retired police officer with a lot of experience, and so he's somebody that. But well, here in Ghana, if you look at the structure, I think the primary role for the police is much more, or the law enforcement enforcement agency is more about enforcement, and that is
Okay.
quite clear. That's quite clear. I mean, the police, they are not supposed, they are not on the road to educate. I mean, the role to educate is for the NCC, is the National
Mm.
Commission for Civic Education. They are supposed to do all the education about public, whatever that we are talking about. But unfortunately, I don't remember the last time I heard about NCC in this country. I know they are there. I know they are there, but and so it's quite. But then again, we don't also have to wait for people to commit the crimes before we arrest them, because it is even expensive investigating than to prevent. It is very expensive to investigate and to prevent. So it's quite reasonable to educate. However, in recent times, various law enforcement agencies, police services, and all others have taken upon themselves to give some highlights to the public about the dangers of some of these crimes, which I think is going a long way to reduce some of these crimes, which is helping the way. But then we should enhance the education aspect of it, and then probably on a national level, on a national scale, um, the law enforcement agencies, together with the NCCE and all the stakeholders involved, should be able to put the right information out there. Because the things we are discussing here, seriously, in my opinion, these are the things that ought to be discussed on the radio stations and whatever that's supposed to be, more than the everyday political topics that has taken our airwaves.
Mm.
Because, I mean, if somebody is arrested for unknowingly, you have no intentions, you have no idea that what you are carrying is a cocaine or is a weed, and it got caught. And like I said, look at the statistics from NACOP. About
Yeah.
70% of those people who have been arrested are, I mean, unwitting Courier. And then Africa Union says that 300% of it. And so it's quite a big case. It's a huge case. But unfortunately, the kind of, I don't also want to blame government and people too much. But I think the education must be intensified. It must be so that we'll be able to put some information out there so that people get to know what is happening and stay away from trouble.
Thank you very
George,
much. Yes, Mr. Gomez, please go
just
ahead.
just real quick, whilst we're still on education, I think it's important that I make this note.
Okay.
Recently, I think the past 3 months, I've had an opportunity to work closely with our police on the community liaison section, and I've been part of a few meetings we've had in schools, our public schools. Um,
Mm.
so these are some of the initiatives that I like to just challenge ourselves and the citizenry out there at large. I want you to know that like our police have a liaison department that is supposed to deal with schools, communities, and different facets of communities and life. But like I said, they also have capacity challenges. So
Mm.
what then we've done is we've come in as private sector. I'm particularly a volunteer in for-profit operations. So the
Mm.
little that we are raising from certain ventures that we do, of course, very clearly are raised and declared to the state. We made a decision to be plowing back into our community by facilitating programs like that, where we go in as a private institution, but we seek the partnership and collaboration of a state enforcement. And the state has been very gracious to actually accommodate and fulfill our requests. So I would like to urge the citizenry out there that let's begin to be more patriotic and volunteer ourselves. It may not be resources, it may not be money. At times, it's just you being available to move one enforcement officer or open doors to a trained individual from the state to just come and give a talk to these kids. Because once we harness and take care of these children, then we are beginning to secure an Africa that is going to be free of a lot of these vices that we are discussing today.
Thank you. Uh, Let me also quickly say this. Mr. Ahanta mentioned some few things that we know that when it comes to public education on any issue at all, in Ghana, we have the uh, the NCC, they are mandated to educate Ghanaians on any information, anything at all. So what we are discussing today, of course, they should be able to be in a position to educate. I can only speak to the fact that for since 2019, the Doyen Institute of Intelligence and Investigation launched a program we call the Security Awareness Program, SAP, and we finance it ourselves. I can confidently give you data. Over millions of Ghanaians have been educated by the Doyen Institute. For example, if you take the whole of the Western region, we wrote a letter to the Ghana Education Service at the time that kidnapping was in the rise. We told them we want to go to their secondary schools and then educate these students on how to mitigate the threat against kidnapping. Yes, they gave us the go ahead. They were the only region in the whole of Ghana that gave the institute the go ahead to go to their secondary schools at that time to educate, which we did. And I was at the forefront of that education, and we had no sponsorship from anyone, but it was something we were doing for the good of our country. Aside that, I can tell you on confident and by the data that we have educated most of the state organization you can think of in this country, from the Ministry of Interior, from the Ministry of Information, Ministry of Gender, to the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Attorney General, uh, most of, including the Parliament House of Ghana, Bank of Ghana. But even when we were at a point we wanted to nationalize the security awareness program, we wrote to the NCC that we wanted to be in partnership with them. Not that we even wanted money from them or any resources from them. We said we want to collaborate with them to go to districts and bring these sort of training we are having here to the people on the ground. Whatever happened, happened, and that was a no. And that's why, but we have taken the mandate not to quit, but we will continue to educate citizens of the world through the medium. And first, we're going to churches, we're going to the mosques, we're going to schools, we're visiting communities, but now it's too expensive. We decided to use this medium, which is a bit cheaper, that we can afford to educate the citizens of Africa. So I would also say, since Mr. Gome has shared the part, I'm telling you in confidence what we also do here as well. But we don't have the pushing like how you have it. We're hoping that as we journey on, maybe we have good people out there who may decide that indeed the world or Africa must hear of these content we share and probably provide a bigger platform where we can communicate these to our listeners. Moving away, let me also share this before I go to the questions. Our time is almost up. So before I go to the questions, let me quickly say this that Mr. Ahantan,
Yes.
first of all, there are each country has its own rules, laws that governs them. When you go to countries like Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Algeria, Singapore, the penalty for found being in possession of drugs is death penalty. Is death penalty. In countries like Ghana, Zambia, and other African countries, we are looking at prison sentences. But there are certain countries that if you are found with these contraband, you'll be rest assured that it means that you are looking at having a death penalty. I remember at the airport, yes, I have worked as an interdicting officer at the Kotoka International. In fact, almost all the entry points in Ghana. But I remember there was a time we arrested about a 55-year-old Singaporean who had touched down in Ghana, and he had then swallowed drugs. Okay. And while we're transporting him from the Kotoka International Airport to our headquarters, there was only one question he kept asking: what is going to happen to me? What is going to happen to me? Then a senior officer of mine said, he responded to him and said, so over here, you take you to court. If the courts find you guilty, then you will sentence to a prison. The man felt relief. He was so much excited. Why? That was the question I posed to him. That was when I realized that in Singapore, if you are found with cocaine, with heroin, methamphetamine, and all those ones, it is death penalty. So have these at the back of your mind, that as you move around, just make sure that the preventive measures we have given here, you adhere to them. Adhere to them, so you are not found when you are traveling. Have that also at the back of your mind. Now, let me go back to the comment section, and I do have some questions. I'll read them quickly. Mr. Jerry Springer is saying he's a retired law enforcement officer, and the program is very enlightening. Mami Ekia Adipa, today has been light. Thank you, Doyan Institute of Intelligence and Investigation, for sharing such knowledge with the public. Thank you very much, Mami Ekia Adipa. Then you're watching live from the Volta region of Ghana. That's actually my region as well. So I have Chumba Frederick Amusunda, and this is a Zambian, following strictly from Zambia, Lusaka, as a Doyen alumni. Ever since my life and person security priority, I've become a person security priority. Thank you, Mr. Doyen. This is amazing program, so educative, from the woman TW. Then Michael Soriba Kamara from Sierra Leone. He said, George, what is the position of the law if you are arrested with a luggage containing contraband items and fingerprint examination becomes negative because you did not pack the baggage and it was given to you by a close friend or a relative to transport? I'll speak from the point of experience. Yeah. Once you do not have any sort of evidence to counter what law enforcement is submitting, it means you have lost your case already. Let me be bold to make a strong statement here, and all of you can correct me. I mean, my guests can correct me. If you are arrested by a law enforcement officer, the first thing that is on the mind of the law enforcement officer is to look for evidence that would show that you have indeed committed the crime. The law enforcement officer is never going to look for evidence to free you and to support you. The law enforcement officer, whether a police, CID, is looking for evidence to indeed confirm that you have committed this crime. It is in the absence of not finding enough evidence to prosecute you. That's where they might say that for lack of evidence, the case could be in the court or the case could be withdrawn. You can correct me, Mr. Ahantan, who is a law enforcement officer, when you come in. But I can say that once you do not, there is no counter evidence to what law enforcement is saying, then there may be some level of difficulty. But I will leave these questions. My guests, kindly take note of these questions and you have it answered before we go. The questions are many, so let me read through, then we can answer them thoroughly. Coming from Michael again, are you obliged to cooperate with the law enforcement officers that got you arrested during the investigation? What should you actually do when faced with such blunder or embarrassment? I'll leave that to the law, to my guests as well, but I'll also come in. Wow, quite a number of questions coming through. Okay, so let's do for Michael the two questions. First of all, he's asking, should he collaborate with law enforcement when he's arrested for unwitting courier? And then the second question was that, what if he's arrested and then there are no fingerprints, even though the luggage was given to him by someone else, but there are no fingerprints? What could he do? Mr. Ahantan, I'll leave that one for you.
Yeah. So, George, so the first thing I would say is that if you are arrested, collaborate. You have no choice than to collaborate, collaborate and cooperate. You have no choice. You have no choice than to cooperate. And also, investigation will prove that you were part of it. For all you know, you told the person that no. Okay, so you pack it and I'll carry it, so that when we are caught, I'll say that I didn't pack it. So interrogation will bring a lot of information out. You understand? People are finding ways and means to commit crime, so we'll get to know. We'll interrogate and interrogate and interrogate and interrogate, because now fingerprints have shown that you are not part of it. What about abetment?
Okay.
What about abetment? And so it's a lot will depend on investigations. An investigation will bring out a lot of facts. But the first thing is that cooperate with the law enforcement officers. If it is true that you genuinely you are not aware of it, I mean it's unwitting and you have no idea about it, investigation will also
Mm,
prove it. Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much. I would give a different question to Mr. Gomez because of our time. So this is coming from Jerry Springer. It's good to hear from the Zambian officer. I have worked with some fantastic officers from Zambia and in AU and Somalia as well. So that's it's just a celebration going out to our Zambia counterpart. A question is coming from a few years. What can you as an individual do, especially as a first-time traveler who is faced with suspicion of carrying any contraband? Uh, Mr. Gomez, you can take that one for me. She's asking, what must you do as a first-time traveler that you are faced with a suspicion of carrying any of these contraband?
Thank you so much, George, and thank you so much, Jerry, for those accolades. Indeed, cooperation is one very cardinal aspect. You're caught up in that situation. Do not try and justify. Do not try and clean up anything. Do not try and act smart. You've been caught up. You've been caught up. You let your guard down somewhere, or something happened that you did not realize.
Yeah.
Just as our hunter has said, law enforcement officers are trained to sniff and detect quite a lot of things. If you are innocent, through a process of interrogation, because it's going to take you from so many angles, you will be lucky, of course, where fingerprints can be taken and it may easily be proved. But there are certain regions, and particularly Africa, we may not have that biometrics kind of track system to easily triangulate fingerprints and the like. The best you can do is cooperate. You're already caught up in that situation and seek guidance. When you cooperate with the law enforcement officers, they're definitely going to be more helpful to you because at the end of the day, they will realize you are not the ultimate target they're out for. And therefore, they will look for your collaboration and you helping lead to who the kingpin is. So collaboration is very, very important, and that's what may save your butt.
Okay, thank you. And then to Afiye, I think one of the things you can do, like we have stated already, is to make sure that you are not taking anyone's gifts along on your first time traveling, and then make sure that if anyone is sending you to deliver an item to someone else, just make sure that you take the money and you purchase those items yourself. In those ways, no matter how close you are to someone, if the person wants to give you an item to be delivered to someone else, always propose alternative. Give me money, I can go and buy the item myself. Or, okay, use the post office to post the item. Use any of the courier services to post those items. And then the person can become responsible to that. I can also, let me see, I see Gloria Edu said, thank you, gentlemen, for such program. My first time and I'm loving it. Good evening. Watching from Aguna Ahanta, Mr. Ahanta, good evening. So I think that your, in
Wow.
other words,
Wow.
for a lack of better word, your subjects are greeting you in your
Wow.
hometown.
Wow.
So that's coming from Gloria Eduse, who is in Ahantan Aguna. There is something shared by Mr. Basiru, and he said, good evening once again. I have an African American friend who I have have been sending locally products. And one day at the airport, I met a friend who asked where the destination is, and I told him US. Then he told me he has a small package for a friend in Atlanta, and if he could put it in my package. And
No,
because
no,
of the
no.
trust and the respect I had for him,
No, no,
I
no,
almost
no.
took a small parcel. Then a family friend who happens to work at the airport called me and spoke to me in Hausa that I shouldn't. So I think that Mr. Basiru Ibrahim, you were saved by that family friend of yours. Of course, we can only assume you are saved because it could be that there's no concealment in it. It could also be that there was a concealment in there. So let us be extremely cautious. I think that it is the backbone of the conversation we've had today. I think before I wrap up, I have Obrimpon and a lot. Oh, I almost missed it, but thank God you have joined us. Good evening, watching from Kaswa. In fact, Kaswa is a country on its own. We'll find a day to discuss Kaswa. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd Papalabi, for joining from Kaswa. My colleagues, it's been an insightful session once again, but I can never leave without taking your final word, especially because you have a practical background. I'll start with Mr. Ahantan. Kindly go over again and give us your final word and probably something that your listeners can take home in being cautious.
Okay, that's fine. I think unwitting Korea is it's not a new trend. It's not actually a new trend. It's been there. It's been there. It's keep being modified here and there. So the thing is, if you are traveling across the borders, please be sure that everything you are carrying along are things that you have personal knowledge of it. You pack them yourself, you carry them yourself, you took them yourself. You'll be able to answer them. That new bag, you bought it yourself. That dress, that overall, you took it yourself. So that when you are being questioned, you'll be able to answer. And just in case somebody decides that take something, especially the cassava, the yams, or whatever it is, to somebody elsewhere, tell the person to give you the money, you buy it yourself, you package it yourself. Other than that, please be bold enough to say that no. Because look, if you are caught, and in as much as you might be innocent, that reminds me of a story that we're told when all animals were running away, and elephant saw antelope running. Then the elephant asked the antelope, "Why are you running?" Then the antelope tells the elephant that they are arresting goats. Then the antelope, but you are not an elephant. You are not a goat. You know what the elephant told the antelope told the elephant? It will take them over 20 years to know that me, elephant, I'm not a goat. You understand? So it means that they will subject you to a lot of inconveniences before investigation will prove that you are not the real culprit. So be guided, and all the time make sure that you are fully in the know of all your personal stuffs you are traveling with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahantan, for that insightful wrap up. I'll go to Mr. Gome Chirambo. Kindly wrap by giving an advice and a preventive one to our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. Indeed, this has been very insightful. It's very, very important that, and mostly as Africans, we have it's normally cultural that we tend to be very polite. No is very difficult to come out because we feel we'll be perceived in a certain way. When it comes to matters of you carrying parcels or luggage over and across borders, please always think of the consequences as we've highlighted them. George has been very clear to state that most countries actually have even instituted death penalties. So imagine you failing to take the deal, do the due diligence, and ending up in a country where they find that contraband and you are sentenced either for life or by hanging. So, my word of advice and caution again and again to our listeners is please take ownership of whatever you carry. What do I mean by that? Everything you carry, you should park, as my colleagues have said. Everything that you carry, you should scrutinize. We saw how concealment is done. Somebody may bring a carton box to you and offload the items, but they can easily conceal something that you can't catch. So always ensure that the packing is finally done by yourself. Uh, that is what I would say, George.
Thank you very much, my guest, for joining the show. And I appreciate your kind contribution towards educating the citizens of Africa on security awareness. And on today's one, which is very important, Unwitting Courier. What I'm urging our listeners to do for us, we should be able to get these words to our friends, our loved ones on our related social media handles. So if you're watching us, we here are pleading with you in order for others to benefit. That's why the program is free, so all of us can benefit. And the more people hear about these things, the better we can see that our community would be safer. So we're encouraging you to share these, the video, the live stream on your social media handles. Even after the show, the video is still on our Facebook page and then on our YouTube channel. Please, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, kindly do so. We will be dropping some wild content there, as well as our TikTok page as well. Our TikTok, you can find us at the same Doyen Institute. And you can, the reason why we're not streaming live on TikTok as well, which is supposed to be part, is because we have not clocked the 1,000 numbers yet. And so you will do us a lot of good by going to our TikTok page, which has most of the videos we have used in today's content in there. So assuming you want to make reference and share these content with some of your friends, you can head to our TikTok Doyen Institute page, follow us, like, and then make sure you share to your friends to also follow. On that note, once again, I appreciate you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Join us again next week, the same time, 17 hours GMT, while we dive into another critical issue and create awareness to make sure that you and your family are safe and secure. Till we meet again, thank you and do enjoy the rest of the weekend.